Hello, welcome to Talking Utter Slot, the podcast that thinks slot cars are best enjoyed with your tongue in your cheek. I'm Scott, and I'm talking to you from sunny West Sussex, well, from somewhere deep within the Oxfordshire Motorsport Triangle, locked in his shed, trying to make his slot cars go faster. I'm joined by my co-host and perfect 10,
Pedro.
In this episode, we'll be talking about new cars, old cars, races, and swap meets. I went to a swap meet in East London, Pedro went racing in Oxford, and we're both interested in a new look for an old event in Belgium. Meanwhile, the undoubted star of the week comes from Canada. You can't accuse us of being Little Englanders. Now, Pedro, I know we discussed what we were going to do, but I may have to add something quickly because I've just had a delivery.
You have?
Yep, doorbell went just 2 minutes ago. Postman was there, nice box. I have to say, I was expecting it. I ordered something on eBay late on Sunday night. Everybody does that, don't they? They buy slot cars late on Sunday night on eBay. And I'm delighted to say it has arrived, and the outer box looked a little bit worse for wear, so I was a little bit anxious, but actually all is good, all is fine inside.
Although we need to do an unboxing, Scott. We need photos of your beaten up box to put onto the internet so people can share in the joy of an unboxing. Or should we ban that?
No. I think we did that. I think we did that last week, and I think we should go out on a high. I think one invisible unboxing. But suffice to say, I'm doubly excited, and I may want to get the show over because I want to play with my new car. So if you get a sense of me rushing you on, it's because I've got a new slot car.
Dear listener, this week we will only ramble on for 15 minutes.
Some luck. Anyway,
come on then, what is it?
Let's start off with this. It's a Porsche 935 by Fly, of which I have many. And regular listeners will know that last week I got a Porsche 935 by Carrera, which pleased me very much. So I'm on a bit of a Porsche 935 kick. You know, this. I beg you. Oh, sorry. Yes, that's what you mean.
Apologies to all the gay community.
It's a model of the 935 that actually won Le Mans. And it comes in a special cardboard box rather than a regular Fly one. And this one looks pristine. It's a sort of gold sort of shoeboxy size thing. It's even got a little booklet inside the lid, which is still in the cellophane and hasn't been opened. So I have high hopes of it all being pristine. But being me, of course, it will be out. The car will be taken from the box. The magnet will be removed. A little bit of lubrication will be put on the bushes, and then whoom, down the track.
So I was going to ask you, because you were giving us fantastic details about the box. It was almost like I was there in your study, and I really appreciated that. But you didn't tell me what the damn livery was. What's the livery on it? Is it a martini? I don't know what won and what didn't.
You mean you don't know which livery won Le Mans? My God!
Not for a 935. No, sorry. Ignorance is bliss.
It's white. And it was a Kramer Porsche.
Yeah.
And the principal sponsor is Numero Reserve or Numero Reserve. I don't know how you would pronounce it because I don't know whether it's Italian or French.
Well, I'm going to have to go and Google it. I have no idea what we're talking about.
And that Philippe Salvé is the other one. So it's a gorgeous thing. I think it was 1979, Klaus Ludwig and the Whittington brothers.
Oh, the Whittington brothers. Weren't they drug dealers?
Brothers. Allegedly.
So off at a tangent.
Immediately, you can't remember the livery, but you remember
that they were drug dealers.
I like it.
Oh, there's a T-shirt in that. Something to do with livery and felony. I like it. 4 minutes in, and I'm off slight. No, it's not really a tangent, is it? But on my Instagram feed this week, I follow an account called Obscure Cars Daily, and he posted up a picture of some, funnily enough, obscure car, and it was vaguely related to, there was whoever ran, oh, this is rambling, who ran the marches with a blue livery? Was it Blue Thunder? Not Blue Wonder? Oh, we're back on pills again, aren't we? I found an empty box of Viagra on a dog walk earlier today.
Were you disappointed?
No, I was amused intensely. It was just like, oh, what's that doing? It was a very shiny box. I'm not familiar with the boxes, dear listener. I am not familiar with the boxes. Let's make that clear. But it was a very shiny thing, and I'm a magpie, so I just went over and had a look at this litter on the floor and went, Viagra, and it made me giggle. And so what I did with it...
That's not one of the after effects I've done.
What I did with the box, thinking this can't be just cast aside idly in the corner of the recreation park. I took it over to one of the benches and sort of stuck it between the slats of one of the benches, so the next person who sits on the bench will go, oh, Viagra, because that just made me, it amused my tiny little mind. Anyhow, the box on the Fly, that's, I'm not a big fan of boxes, but I do remember one or two of my BMWs M1s came in nice presentation boxes. Oh, he's waving it at the camera. Oh, I remember that livery. Oh, I am jumping around.
That's
because I forgot to finish my bit about Obscure Cars Daily. They were talking about this guy. He was almost he was almost praising him, and he was an absolute scoundrel of a drug smuggler. Along with the Whittingtons. So I don't approve at all, but there you go.
I have no idea. I don't know who we're talking about now. I'm confused.
No, well, he was something to do with the Blue Thunder March, which is a classic livery. I believe Revel may have done it on their march, and he was also known for sniffing stuff. Well, no, I smoked stuff.
Well, of course. Okay. Yeah, well, I cue names. I was involved in some
drug smuggling.
Tangentially, I hasten to add, I've been involved in drug smuggling.
I don't think you want to confess that on a podcast, Scott.
I was PR at BMW when the team manager for the BTCC team was caught, famously, with some banned substances in the race truck on the way back from testing.
Ooh.
And right at the end of the season, and it was all a bit tense. But anyway, that's a different story. It's well documented, so we don't need to go over it here. Shall we get back to slot cars? Although there is a slot car of that. Oh no, there isn't a slot car of that car because it was the '92 BMW, the Listerine one, the green coloured one.
I
don't think there's a slot car of that.
Is that an E30?
Do you know, even though I worked there, I never really remember the numbers. E36.
Godfathers.
So, well, I always find we didn't sell E numbers. I said we sold the 3. So all the fanboys all love quoting it's an E this and E that. It's like the Mercedes. I bet you go W124 or whatever.
Oh, well, I do because I've got a 123, but that's all that.
Oh, well, there you go. I've got no idea what that looks like, other than letters and a number.
Well, just imagine automotive beauty in a slightly boxy style, Germanic boxy style, and there you are. That's the W123.
That's a 190, isn't it?
No, it's Bicester Scramble this weekend coming, and I'm going to hopefully take my 123 there. So look out for it.
Right,
and please don't scratch the paint if you see it in the car park.
Anyway, meanwhile, back at slot cars,
back on planet Earth,
and I set this up as being the most significant piece of news this week, and it's from Canada, and it's the new MR slot car Shadow.
Yeah, you're saying it wrong. You're saying it wrong. It's Mr. Slot Car.
Shadow?
No, Mr. Slot Car. I know he likes to say he's MR Slot Car, but we all know it's really Mr. Slot Car.
Mr. Slot Car. Now, neither of us have got one of these, so we should caveat any opinions we have on the basis that we've never even touched one
or seen one.
But highly anticipated, I think, would be the word.
Mm-hmm.
It's been trailed a lot on certain YouTube channels, and I've seen pictures of them on track. So I presume at least some people somewhere, the containers have arrived and they're getting shipped out. So possibly America rather than Europe, but only a matter of time. But you were keen to talk about this, I think.
Yeah, you're so out.
Why is my question?
We were so out of date, Scott. It has shipped. Sean had them. and he briefly sold out. I was looking. It appeared on his recent arrivals last Friday, I think, and by what's today? What is today? Wednesday. I think maybe by Monday it sold out. But I noticed this morning it's back in stock. So I don't know if people have returned them or what. But
Customer returns. No, I'm sure it isn't.
why am I excited? Why am I interested in it? I wouldn't say I'm excited about it. I am interested in it. So here's the thing. I like Can-Am. I have one or two Can-Am cars, and I do like the early days of Can-Am. I don't like what this DN4 represents, like a mad, barely hidden Formula 5000 or whatever it was under the skin. I don't like. For some reason, it makes me think of wing cars, and that isn't a good thing. Slot car wing cars. It's just. However, this appears to be a really quite crisp and nicely detailed model, and it is quite different. So I'm very curious about it. I have no intention of buying one whatsoever, but I am hopeful that if it's a success, and I believe there's only 1,950 of these ones shipping, but if it's a success for Mr. Slotcar, that he's going to be doing others. I believe he's already some way down the line doing the Ferrari Can-Am car, which would be interesting. I don't know it, so I'd have to go and look up the shape and decide whether or not I was vaguely interested, all the while knowing that I don't like Ferraris. But I think it's a step change for Mr. Slotcar as I see it, because the last thing he punted out I was excited about and I was looking forward to the XK220, and that was an epic disappointment, which I wouldn't touch with a barge pole. This is how does one company, admittedly some years have passed maybe, but how does one company go from the nastiness of the 220 to the crispness and the attractive model of the DN4? Discuss. Or you can't.
Well, there's a number. There's a number of things to unpack. Why? No, let's start with. I think just a quick correction, if I may.
Go on.
I may be wrong. Yep. You sort of said this looks like a kind of a Formula 5000 car with some bodywork on it. I think you do it a little disservice. I think the actual car was still what we would recognise perhaps as a sort of group, a proper two-seater open sports car. Latterly, Can-Am did become single-seaters with bodywork on, didn't they? So March.
I apologise.
But I think this is still a real sports car,
okay.
If you like. Mm-hmm. But I think, as we were saying before, I'm not familiar with this car at all. I have no idea what the real car looks like. So this looks like a nice model. I was quite familiar with how the Jaguar looked. And when it came through, I was maybe a little bit, is this a little bit caricaturish? It's a very funny shape, that car, in reality. There's a lot of very gentle curves and concaves going on there. Even in real life, it's a complex shape. To try and shrink that down, I would imagine it's very difficult. So I'm giving them lots of latitude there, but also I think, to slotize it, if that's the right word, a bit like our good friends at Ninko used to do, it's maybe a little wider than it probably should be, strictly speaking, scale. But to quote Shakespeare, a rose by any other name is still a rose. It looks like what it's meant to be. I was very keen. I got the actual livery, the green one that raced, the Unipart sponsored one that raced.
David Coulthard?
Yeah, he was one of the drivers. The ones that got disqualified for cheating.
Was that Tom Walkinshaw?
Oh, you're leaping to correct assumptions. Yes. But anyway, the point being, why is your disappointment with the Jaguar because you think it should have more finesse, more detail? What was your reason for disappointment with the Jag, and why? Yeah, perversely, what's your joy in the Shadow?
At the time, my annoyance was with the lack of detail in it and the god-awful doors. The thing did not have double glazing and massive frames around the doors like what Mr. Slotcar produced. And then there was stuff, I'm struggling completely to remember, but I seem to recall there was a big kind of duct for the radiator up the front, and they just sort of filled it in, I think. if my dodgy memory is correct. And so it looked very much like a bit of a fudge, disappointing fudge, because the McLaren wasn't bad. They got the shape slightly wrong, but it wasn't woeful. And I don't think it was 1/32nd, but it wasn't woeful. So my disappointment was on those grounds, and on those grounds, as they say on Dragon's Den, I was out. I wasn't buying it, mate. And then you slap a fantasy livery on it, and obviously I am apoplectic with rage. The DN4, it just looks like a. It is hard for me to explain. I think what I appreciate is the attention to detail that appears, not knowing the one-to-one, so this seems like slight hypocrisy, but it appears like it's a finely detailed model. I mean, he's gone to some effort completely redesigning guide blades or guide mechanisms in order to get that ridiculously low nose, which I have to say is surely just going to shatter into a gazillion pieces when you start trying to run it on dodgy plexi track like what we have at Ramsden. But he's gone to some effort to try and make a real scale model of it, and it looks quite nice. I'm sure I've seen a photo. When you have exposed inlet trumpets on big banger V8s and things, it's quite easy for the manufacturer just to sort of chrome the things and leave it at that. But I believe it looks to me in a photo I've seen like there's a little bit of detail inside the trumpet. I don't know what it is, but it looks quite detailed. And I guess I'm just making the case for being a detail fanboy. I admire the effort that appears to have gone in. If it turns out it hasn't got Euro standard hubs, if it turns out that really clever guide is a bit of a liability, or if it turns out that front splitter, is it a splitter? It's bodywork, actually, isn't it? The bodywork is just too frail to be run. That'll be a disappointment. Not one I'll feel too badly, because I won't have bought one. Let me make that clear. 82 quid, I'm not buying one. But it represents a good direction for him to go in, maybe. Although I'd like Mr. Slotcar to... He's a bit, what's the word? Unreliable? I mean, the 220 was close to the McLaren F1 era, was close to... I think McLarens did run against 333s, but I think almost each time, I'm making sweeping assumptions here, but I think almost each time he's gone for a different powertrain or a different inline, sidewinder, angle winder, whatever. So there's an inconsistency, but I put on Slot Forum, I would take him off the naughty step, which I put him on for the 220, and suggest that this is looking like a sharp model that bodes well for possible future Can-Ams, which I would possibly be interested in, as long as they don't look like wing cars. There you go. That's my rationalisation, and it makes perfect sense in my head.
In your head, well, we'll let the listeners decide. I think it's great that we've got the overall thing, leaving the detail aside, the fact that we've got so many manufacturers making ready-to-run cars. So it's not 20 years ago there was a handful. Now there's pages and pages of them on any of the retail websites on there. So I think that's great. Now the price, yeah, okay, maybe it's a lot of money, but it's limited volume. It's I guess there'll be a few different liveries, but there's not much choice on this one, so we can't make endless variations on it. So they've got to recoup the cost, and it puts something interesting into the market. So I mean, when was the last time we had? I'm going to show my age. Vanquish MG. Now, that was the last Shadow I bought.
Ditto. Yeah, I had a couple of those.
Yeah, and it's about 4 times the size and weight of
this
thing.
But it did have a working diff, Scott. It had a working diff. How cool was that? And how many did you break?
Well, exactly. I was going to say, for how long did it last? How long did it last? Whatever. Okay, well that's yeah, good. I think it's just, but certainly a very interesting car. I think it seems to be exciting. People will find out soon enough when the speed demons get them on the track how fast it goes.
Yeah. Well, I don't feel like it needs to go super fast. I hope it doesn't go super fast, because it will break into a gazillion pieces. The front, just not the front, the roll bar, those trumpets, that wing, it's all going to break into a gazillion pieces for sure, unless it's made of something super strong. But for me,
plastic.
If I was interested in it, it wouldn't have to be super fast, because I'm not a speed crazed moron. There's an irony there.
says them. Says them. That leads us probably neatly on to you going racing in Oxford.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it leads us neatly onto eBay, where my ID is Speed Craze Moron.
Speed Craze Moron. So what?
But before we
How
do that,
did you get on?
before we do that, Scott, you
Well.
weren't keen, but I was keen, and I want to mention the Can-Am link because I think it's FV Slot announced the box set of the turbo and the non-turbo Toyota 7s. Now, they're releasing, well, no, I don't know if they're releasing them now, but certainly slotcarpassion.com. Other websites are available, but that's a good one. They had pictures of the box set of the red one, the turbo, and the blue one, the normally aspirated version. And they look quite spiffy. And if, for instance, Mr. Slotcar has some success with his Shadow, perhaps he could move into the realm of the Toyota 7. I mean, even fewer repaints, so possibly not a brilliant business move, but I would like a Toyota 7. Long time ago, you've possibly forgotten it, but you gave as a prize to Slot Forum when you had your Toyota hat on a cutaway drawing of the 7, and I've somehow managed to win, inverted commas, that, and it's a prized possession. I don't know what it is about that car, because it's a really simple looking thing, but I just love it. Anyhow,
you are wonderful in your perversity, having just gone on about how you don't like wedge-shaped wing car looking things. You've just described an adoration for the most wing car like
no,
Can-Am car
no, you're
ever.
not having that. The Toyota 7 is nothing like the Shadow. It's just a boxy. I shouldn't like it because it's so boxy, but I don't know quite why that one appeals, but it does.
Yeah.
So let's just leave it at
It's
that.
a very small it's a very small thing in real. When we brought one over for Goodwood, the day after we had hired Snetterton to give some journalists a run in what should have been it and the 92 Le Mans car. Unfortunately, the 92 Le Mans car managed to break at Goodwood, so it didn't run. But to get the journalist into the Toyota 7, we had to take all the bodywork off and remove various bits of things to just squeeze Andrew Frankel in so that he could have a drive of it, which he did. So that was a very interesting long day because after a weekend at Goodwood and a very sunny day at Snetterton, and if anyone's ever been to Snetterton, which is a English provincial racetrack, it's flat and the wind comes whistling through and the sun beats down, and it's a long time when you're just standing there. Anyway, okay, so you want to bet? So I'm racing Oxford. Go. How did you get on? What did you race?
Again, I can't go straight there, Scott, because you told that Toyota 7 story in episode, I don't know, 5 or 6.
Did
yeah,
I? I'm sorry.
Well, not quite the same, but I'm pretty sure it's there. I'm not going to go back. Maybe one of the American listeners, because we've got two, might let us know which one that was. Yes, I went racing yesterday evening at Oxford, and it was slotted Group C's, which I think is a firm favourite of the membership at Oxford. And a good time was had by all. There is something deeply joyous about the range of cars that Maurizio has produced in the Group C styly. There's something slightly disappointing in the way that the Lancia LC2 seems to be the go-to, and it beats everything. Certainly in the hands of the two characters I'd call the cowboy, John. One is called John and one is called Wayne. So collectively they are the cowboy, John Wayne. That's a reference for the kids there.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, he was in a film with that Tom Cruise and Nicolas Cage was John Wayne. Yeah, they've got particularly fast Lancias. Mine is good, but not stunningly good.
That's not true. John Wayne was never in a film with Nicolas Cage and Tom Cruise.
I was just trying to make the kids do some research. And
you were. I was by not extensive cinema. I was going, really? That's a fantastic.
What film was that?
If ever there was a pub quiz winning question, it's that one, but it's not true.
In my head, it were Tom Cruise and Nicolas Cage ever on the same set, I'm pretty sure they'd start a fight. I just can't see those two getting along, and they'd probably end up in fisticuffs. Anyhow, Scale Electric's slotted Group C's at Ramsden, great fun, and obviously I'm going to point out that I made it to the podium. Yay!
Oh,
Bottom step,
and
obviously.
which car were you racing? Which Group C
Well,
car
here's
were
the
you?
thing. This is part of what holds me back with racing, I think, because I've got quite a collection, reasonable collection. I don't think it's massive by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to have 4 races in a round, and so I tend to sort of swap my cars. So rather than get consistently bad with one, I am consistently bad with several. So I did race my LC2, which is quick in a straight line and is good, but the driver lets it down. I also raced a 962. I think I raced 2 962s. Oh, interestingly, thinking about it, do you remember back to episode 1 or 2? The Tony Secchi cars that we bought from Pendle at the
Yeah,
festival.
yeah.
It was the pink Blaupunkt car. I think that's a Yurst car.
Oh, say that again. Say that again, please. Let me hear that again.
Pink Blaupunkt car, Yurst livery.
Uh, Pink
What's
Blaupunkt.
oh
Pink.
pink
It was
Blaupunkt?
just the way the Pink Blaupunkt. It was funny.
Right. Okay.
Pink Blaupunkt.
Moving on.
Pink Blaupunkt.
And the other one was
Um,
I call it the Fat Turbo Express, but I don't think that is it. I think it might be FA Turbo Express or something like that. But both of those were Tony Secchi cars, which I've breathed on a little bit. I think that one of them has suspension on the back, and they are bargain things that give me quite a lot of joy. The pair of them, because the liveries are nice, and they run reasonably well. But as I have said, slot it at Oxford is pretty much a Lancia
well,
fest if you want to win.
I mean, I've got a lot of the slotted Group C cars because I'm a Group C nut, but I don't really race them. But I understood, and I haven't got one of these, that the latest Jaguar, the XJR10, which has got a little bit of a longer wheelbase, is kind of the class of the field because it's that extra length. But no one's got one of those.
I have got one of those, and I have raced it, and I did actually put it out for a few laps last night, and I would say it is the dog's doodahs. However, I declined to run it in anger because the front splitter in a Shadow DN4 Styly is so very low. I could hear it clacking a little as I did some test laps, and I thought, you know what, I need to put a spacer in here and just lift that splitter up a bit because I don't want to leave here in tears because my Jaguar's broken. It is
So
very
you,
good. It is a very good car. I put some Thunderslot tires on it, and it goes like stink.
so interesting. So, in to parallel with the real world, the Oxford track is obviously a bit like Sebring, then. So lots of bumps.
Oh
and
hell,
lumps.
yeah, that.
So yeah,
Yeah, if you were going to compare it to anywhere, Sebring, which always amazes me when they come around that right-hander, and I think they're joining a runway or something. There's just this epic bumps. It can't be fun,
Yeah.
right? Driving a car around that track.
Not when you're behind is less than an inch off the ground.
And your
sort of thing.
suspension is no suspension at all, really. Certainly not there for comfort.
Yeah. They're brave, and they don't have much built-in comfort like I do. Let's leave it at that.
So if that's what I've been doing, what have you been doing, Scott?
I went to the Orpington Swapmeet.
So you did.
Which is sort of in East London. It used to be called the London International Swapmeet. And now isn't. Rather sadly, though, as soon as I got through the door, I was handed a leaflet for the next one, which is in November, I think, and it says it's going to be the last one, which is a little bit over claiming because apparently the organizer, who's organised it for 20 years, Phil, is going to. He doesn't want to do it anymore, basically. But I think the NSCC, the Collectors Club, are going to take it over. So that was the rumor from the show. Chatting to Phil, he said it's just that I think he's done it a long time, which is good, and it's one of the shows I enjoy because it's an old sports hall. It's quite small. It's usually pretty packed with stalls. There's a little ante room that's full. The stage has got people on it. Noticeably this time, neither the stage nor the ante room were being used. Everybody had quite a lot of space. So I think there were fewer tables booked by fewer traders for a multitude of reasons. But there was still a good selection there. Probably less of the the rummaging in old bits type thing, which is why I used to enjoy it, because there was, the last time I went along, I had a couple of tires from old things that I had, and there was always somebody there who would go, "Oh yeah, that's a thingy bob, what's it? And here's a tire for it." So it always felt good from that point of view. But if these people are busy or finding other ways to sell stuff, or maybe not doing it anymore, I guess it tells its own tale. But the good news is, if NSC take it over, then it'll still go on. As I said to you, though, it felt to me like a little bit of deja vu, because when I first got into the playing with toy cars and going to swap meets, and I'm maybe stretching the truth a little bit as usual, I think the only swap meets that existed were organised by the NSCC, and there weren't many of them. In the intervening 20 odd years, obviously there's been a growth in the number of swap meets. We've got Swindon and Havant, and certainly the standout ones are the ones at Gaydon, but all over the place. And I think the NSCC now only organises one, which is the Milton Keynes one. So if they do take over running Orpington, it'll be an interesting kind of return to where we were starting. But who knows whether the swap meet has a or that small, can I say old-fashioned, traditional? Let's call it traditional swap meet, where you've got a mixture of the retailers, the traders, the guys you buy from on the website, bringing multiple tables, racks and racks of new cars, bucket loads of old cars, and then you've got private individuals flogging their collection, or somebody flogging some books, somebody flogging some old catalogues, everything in between. Maybe that's at its day. I don't know. The internet.
I'm going to. I have been once to the Orpington meet. I believe it was called the International when I went, and when you mentioned it, I was trying to think when I went, and I think I was still married, which means it must be at least 12, 13, 14 years ago that I went, and I came away a little bit meh, because there weren't. I mean, the like you say, the market has matured. The market for markets has matured, and so swap meets now are a very different beast from what they was back then. And I think you're right. I think the NSCCC probably invented the whole concept. So for that alone, they deserve a pat on the back. But when I went to the Orpington one, the thing that I remember most was there was some dude there with a zapper, and you could take a motor for a few quid. He would zap your motor, and that had me fascinated with just what zapping motors was all about. But the whole, it left me underwhelmed when I went 10 years ago. So to hear that recently it was still a bit underwhelming, which seems odd, because Orpington's a relatively good location, isn't it? Certainly for London.
Just off the M20. I mean, it's literally 5-10 minutes off the M25. So in getting to it is easy, and from that point of view, it's fine. I don't know, but do you know who the man with his magnet zapper probably was?
Am I going to guess? This could go on for quite a while.
Mentioned him. You mentioned him earlier. You have a couple of his cars.
What? Oh my God! The Magnet King was a zapper. Tony Secchi, God rest his soul.
He. Excuse me.
Nice.
Yeah, okay. Apparently somebody mentioned that at the weekend. So there's a nice loop to those two together.
He was the dude. But talking about I find that interesting in a sweet way that that was him zapping motors, and I now have two of his cars, which I have removed copious quantities of magnets out of. We
should just give a quick recap. So back in November at the Gaydon Winter Festival,
slot car, yeah.
Both of us, plus a whole load of other people. This guy had a huge collection of cars. He had died. The cars were being sold on a sort of extra table at the Pendle site, and they were very cheap. I think it was like 20 quid a car, or even less for some.
Yeah.
They'd all been raced and used. I came away with about 2 armfuls. I literally filled up my arm twice with cars.
Fill your boots.
So about 10 or 12, but the consistent thing is some were near immaculate slottits or sideways or whatever. Some were very much Frankenstein monsters where he'd sawn them about and made his own chassis. But crucially, he had glued onto them as many magnets as he could find. And I remember coming home and, with, as I say, about 10 cars, it taking a long time for me to prize off all these magnets. But anyway, he was clearly the magnet guy.
He was the
And I was
magnet
at
king.
Orpington on Sunday.
He was the magnet
Somebody
king.
mentioned that he had the Zappa. But talking about how swap meets and things are evolving, you pointed out to me that Swapmania in Brussels.
Yes.
Now you're still, so they're going to add a swap meet to what was a race, or have I got that wrong? What's the story?
I don't like the way you said that's your story because I have no facts. But hey, that makes me a journalist, surely. Ooh, see what you did there, Pedro. All I saw was on slotcarpassion.com, a great website for news and information. Other websites are available, but they won't be as good. That I think they're holding a 24-hour race, and this running, which I don't know when it is, apologies. They will also attach a swap meet or a show to the race, which I thought was a nice idea, and I wish them well with it. I also had seen recently some pictures of, is it Foro Slot, some kind of Spanish, relatively large gathering of like-minded traders, and that looked quite fun. That actually had me thinking, ooh, I don't know if it's Barcelona or Madrid, but there's a possible weekender there, isn't there? If you nip over and then take in a slot car show. Although I don't think my main squeeze would be too happy with me just disappearing into a village hall, well, a community centre for ages. We've come all this way to Spain and you just want to go and look at the toy cars. Yes, indeed. Anyhow, yeah, Slotmania, they will be doing a swap meet alongside their 24-hour race, which I thought was a nice kind of, they're obviously trying to broadcast, promote the hobby. So top marks to them.
Well, it's a good, I think when we did the first big thing at Toyota a million years ago, we had racetracks and the stands, and recognizing that if you're bringing in people who are a bit curious, they don't want to really watch other people race. That's interesting to a point. They want to have a go themselves. So we had a mixture of tracks that people were racing on, tracks that public could have a go on, and all the weird and wonderful stuff. So the rough tracks, the 4x4s, etc., the little tracks, and that's, I think, it always. What I said last week when I was down in Gauge Master. I've been playing with slot cars for my entire life. I've got a track in the garage, but they had a little layout there with a couple of cars on it for public to have a go at, and I couldn't resist picking up a controller and having a blast round for 5 minutes. So it's a huge, getting your hands on these things and seeing them moving is a huge part of what it's all about, but not just for old gits like us, but for new people. So no, that's good. Well, and that leads me on to hopefully what I think was I wanted to try and talk about when I said yesterday I spent more than a couple of hours, probably two lots of a couple of hours at my track, just blasting cars around, digging out old cars from box, going, oh, I haven't run that for a while, got it out, including, much to your amazement, I think, some Revel tiny things like the Trabant and the NSU.
Oh, Scott,
a real,
look at the time. We're out of time. We've got to wrap it up now. Sorry, mate. Save this for another time. Go on.
No, I'm happily safe. The important thing to see was that, and I think I said to you, how can we, if we could capture somehow, in the many YouTube videos, etc., that there are about slot cars these days, great. Thanks, guys, for doing them. Can't watch them all, but thanks for doing them. It's just that simple joy and happiness of, having some toy cars that you can hold in your hand, you can put them on the track, and you can just do 10 laps, 20 laps, whatever it is. My Carrera timer, which I always set running, does 100 laps before it kind of times out. So that's kind of I just set it going, and then I'm going around and I have a look occasionally at what time I did. But I'm not necessarily racing myself. It's just out of interest, and I'm swapping between different cars. More often than not, it's about 20-25 minutes for me to do 100 laps. So I can roughly it's a bit like turning over the LP. Younger listeners will have to ask their grandparents what an LP was. But an LP, you'd put it on, it would play for sort of 20 minutes, then you'd have to turn it over and play again. So it's a little bit like that, the rhythm of the car going round, resetting the timer, pulling another car out, I love it. That's where the happiness comes
But
from.
the reason I was going to stop you from going off on one was you told me the types of car that you were recently running around, and I rolled my eyes and I despaired, and I just thought, can we get an intervention here going? What were the Revel cars you were mucking about with?
So I have 3 of the tiny ones. So the Trabant,
Yeah.
which is very tiny. Although we say very tiny, the recently newly released Scalextric Mini, which we all watched racing at Goodwood, the full
Swift
size one,
tune, yeah.
at the weekend. The Swift Tune one. It's about that size actually, a lot slower, but the Trabant's about that size. There's an NSU which is a little bit longer,
Oh
which
dear
goes very
Lord.
nicely. Uh, and I've got a Simca. I don't know what it's, little boxy Simca. If I was having a class for this racing, I would call it Cold War Commuters.
I would call it something
So it's
else.
sort of the kind of car.
I would,
would it?
and it
Would
wouldn't be
it?
repeatable.
Would it all? No, I think there was the whole load of cheap cars for people that were made, so minis, little Fiat 500s, all that sort of stuff. These NSUs, a lot. There was a lot of rear-engined, mass-produced kind of budget cars in the 50s, 60s, 70s, wasn't there? So it's kind of, they're really not racing cars. The Beetle is the obvious one. But still people went racing them. So I think it's entertaining, hugely variable. Again, a telling thing about having old slot cars. So 3 cars which were bought at roughly the same time. The Trabi, I kind of swapped the front tires for the rear tires, and they're kind of all right. There's some grip in them. The NSU goes like a dream. All the axles are straight, the wheels are round, the tires are still sticky, drives really quickly. I mean, it's doing pretty decent lap times. And the Simca is, the tires have hardened and gone glossy, and like barely goes round. It's like scraping hard plastic off the wall. So my next, which leads me back to Swapmeet, where I can go and get some tires. So I'm going to put some of those tires, if I can prise them off the hub in one piece, put them in my pocket, and at the next big Swapmeet, go, have you got any of those? Have you got something that fits that? Because these are not, what do you call it? Euro standard Paul gauge doors. These are, tiny little
Are
things.
these?
Anyway, that's another thing. What's the tiniest slot car tire ever made?
Well, that's we'll save that one, eh? What are these inline? These annoying little communist cars.
Well, the Revel, the inside story on Revel slot car development would be fascinating, because again, within those 3 interesting cars, you'd think, well, a common chassis setup would have been easy and cheaper. One is in line with the motor at the back. One is in line with the motor very much not at the back. And I can't remember what the other is, but there doesn't seem to be any real consistency. I've got most of the Revel cars, so those Corvettes, the March you mentioned. They looked great. The driver figures were lovely. They had a nice feel to them. Very few of them were good performers per se, but heavily Carrera influenced. German company, you would of course they're going to copy what they see from their Austrian neighbours. But yeah, I thought they were interesting cars.
I picked up a couple of months back a couple of Revel Jags, because having had one and been incredibly frustrated at not being able to make it run particularly well, I eBayed it and then almost immediately regretted doing so. So I think at possibly maybe it was eBay. I picked up a couple. No, it was. One came from Gaydon, one came from eBay. I've picked up a couple, and they are sweetly pretty models. And this time I'm going to work harder at getting them to run better. But immediately, the first laps that the low drag coupe did, the pinion just started spinning, and I just thought, oh god. But I don't know if I'll go 3D printing or what. Obviously, that is a fad that has died. But I might be able to pick up a chassis from somewhere scrappy out of a dustbin somewhere.
But you just need a pinion, though.
Oh no, you need to do more than that. I need to drop it a bit. I've already shaved down the body posts a bit. Need to drop it. Need to put some decent hubs on it. Better guide.
You don't need You don't need to. You want to, but you don't need to. Anyway,
Yeah.
do you remember, if you want to make it go
Turn
faster,
up the voltage. I actually wrote down just now, you said another cracking T-shirt legend, which says
all right.
rummaging for old bits. I think I like a T-shirt with rummaging for old bits put on it, and then I'd go to swap meets, and people would avoid me like the plague. So win-win.
Do it. Okay, that's good. So that's the virtual merch store for Slot
this
Yes or
week.
Slot, where everything is free. Postage is instant. It's all in your imagination. A bit like anyway. I I suspect, given we're now back to talking about imaginary T-shirts, we probably ought to bring it to a halt. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. I'm off to unbox and play with my new. No. Sorry, I've
I
gone
just
to a premature
ending. Viagra. I just wanted to take a cheap shot, as I am wont to do. I saw that Slot Car Passion, I'm not going to say it again, but Slot Car Passion had
you are
had
being
pictures.
sponsored
Yeah,
by
they're
them.
not sponsors.
I'm
They
gonna send
probably
you- I'm gonna
regret
send
every
them a
mention
bill.
I make of them. They had pictures of the new Slotted Toyota 86C, which is a very colourful car that raced at Fuji, 1,000 kilometres in 1987. He said, reading it off the show notes that he scribbled down. It's very nice. It's very colourful, but it's not a Maserati, is it? That's all I'm saying.
It very much is. In the old days, when I was employed by Toyota, that would have been I have to buy that, because I had to buy every Toyota slot car, obviously.
It's a bit gaudy, if I'm honest.
And I have to say, it's just one. It's a bit gaudy. It's just one of the many liberations of unemployment stroke retirement that I don't feel compelled to do that anymore. So I saw that and I thought, yeah, I've got about a dozen of those, but I shouldn't. I very kindly, Maurizio sent me a few of them in the early
Did he?
days, which was, so I didn't buy them all, but he did. Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
nice fella.
But, it was very nice.
Yeah,
Of him. He knows what a. He's a nice.
he's
fella.
nice to chat to. It's a bit of a gaudy one, that one, and I think it would be one for the collectors only. And the Toyota 86 does run very well. I have to say, it's quite a light body, I think, on that, and it does go quite well. I've got a Minolta car, and I love it to bits. Almost, I love it too much to race, which is a rare thing for me to admit to. But it's so pretty, I don't want to break it. But it does go like stink, so I should break it.
There you go. That tees up a subject for a future episode. Cars we love too much to use because they're too valuable, they're too pretty, they're too rare. ... Write in and tell us what you think. Tell us what you've got that you're frightened to use for whatever reason.
And you know the address, dear listener.
Oh, by the way, I must. The deal is, yeah, I'm delighted to see. I'd said it half jokingly in the last episode. I'm going to Orpington. If you recognise me, come up and say hello. Literally within 2 minutes of walking through the door, a chap came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and said, "Are you Scott?" And I went, "Yes." He said, "Just to say thank you for doing the podcast. I'll listen. It's really great. Keep doing it." And I was, as I predicted I would be. I was absolutely delighted. I was so delighted I had to remember and go back and ask.
I was just about to say, did you get his
you.
name? Because you were telling this nice story, but you're not giving him a shout out.
No, well, I think he deserves something.
So he came up to you, said, "I really appreciate your work. I love what you're doing. Thank you very much. Please don't mention my name."
No, he didn't do that last bit, but no, it was so. Thank you. It was very kind of him, and so I have to say, thereafter for the next 2 hours, nobody mentioned it, and in fact, I mentioned it to a couple of people who said,
"What?
Do you listen to the podcast?" And they went, "No."
Didn't you say?
Yeah, what was that?
What's a podcast?
Yeah, I think there's maybe a technological leap required for some slot car users, but never mind. Anyway, so I just thought I'd get it. It was really nice. But yes, write to us. Leave messages on the forums, with pages on Slot Forum or on Slot Racer or on the Facebook pages, on Twitter, even on YouTube, because when we publish this on YouTube, even though you can't see us, thank God, there's some images to go with it, but you can always leave comments. I think I'm saying that correctly. But anyway, it'd be good to hear from you. Let us know what you think, particularly about, have you got a car that you're too scared to use? So with that, We'll definitely say goodbye. I'm going to go and play with my new Porsche and finish building my Carrera Hospitality Tower that I got for my birthday. That I'm halfway
I'm not
through.
familiar with the Carrera Hospitality Tower.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's 3 stories high above a pit garage, and it comes with little cardboard people and a bar and all that sort
Cardboard
of thing. It's
people.
lovely. I'm going.
Cardboard.
Yeah, well, when you put them inside, so you just see the cardboard. You know, as in, you know, 2-dimensional people. Look it up on the website.
Like a lot of people I know, it's very 2-dimensional. Okay.
Say goodbye, Pedro.
Goodbye, Pedro.
Bye, everybody.
And we're out. That was all right. That's kept going.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I think the time just seemed to run out very quickly there. I don't, usual thing in the middle. I always think we get flabby in the middle because it seemed. I looked at the clock. I thought, we're at 15 minutes. We're doing all right. And the next time I looked at the clock, it was like 37. I thought, how did we?
Where does that time go? I just realised I'm still recording, so I'm going to stop that because that's perfect stuff to put at the end. I apologise. I didn't mean to trap you with.
No, don't.